Okay, welcome back. Time to say hello to our man for all seasons, a Renaissance man, Dr. Bill Deagle, who's going to talk a little slower tonight for some of our listeners who are a little hard of hearing because they want to enjoy everything he has to say. Aren't you, Bill?
I am indeed. I'm going to be a reformed man. What I think I'll do is I'll pre-record it and just play it back as slow.
We'll just slow it down by 3%. No, I had one person who wrote in and said, I have a hard of hearing, and you could ask him please to slow down just a little bit. You
pronounce
talk
all
with
my words, use proper diction. Of course, I'm on a phone now rather than a microphone, but I do tend to speak a little fast when I get excited.
Well, you have explosions of thoughts, and you can't help it. I understand. I haven't had any of that in years, but I can follow you.
Well, we have a lot of issues that are going on.
Boy, do we. Fukushima typhoons lurking, getting ready to pound that withering piece of garbage they call a nuclear power plant or a former nuclear power plant. But wherever you want to start.
I think it would be a good plan to start on Fukushima. And I want to say a few things a little different than, because I know you have some excellent people to talk about the level of radiation and what's going on and how the oceans are dying. But people need to understand what radiation does to a body, to a living thing. What it basically does is strip electrons. And when it strips electrons, it creates free protons, which basically is acidity. It also attracts it attracts free radicals to the area, so it punctures holes through cell membranes, and you lose what's called the electromotive potential. And basically what a membrane is, it's a barrier where you pump more ions on one side of the barrier than the other. That ability to pump is used by high-energy molecules. In fact, around a quarter to half of all of the energy of your body is just basically pumping ions on one side or the other side of a membrane. And a membrane is a lipid bilayer made by fat. That's what's called polar. So when you lose that, you lose the ability to have what's called the charge on your cells. It's actually the life force. So you can actually measure on an animal or a person their bioimpedance. You're actually measuring their life force. That's why we tell people you got to stop the free radicals. You got to protect the mitochondria, and you have to realize these are in many cases also heavy metals besides being radioisotopes. Now, right now we are getting what we call chronic low-grade radiation sickness, and the doctors are not properly trained to be able to certify to find it or recognize it in, say, premature babies in the intensive care nursery or senior citizens that are having accelerated dispatchment. How's that? Is that a good term? That's a new
Works.
medical.
Sure.
Yeah, they're being dispatched to the netherworld. And, of course, with Obamacare, they're going to speed that process up because not only are you going to get fined if you don't have insurance, it's going to be near impossible to sign up. And they say they've extended 6 weeks the impossible task of fixing a system that is worse than the old rhyme of Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Obama built Obamacare. It fell down, and he called his crack team to put it back together again. But the 11 million lines of code were actually just gibberish made by a random number generator. Therefore, it never made anything. They were just told to generate so much code. So what we have is they need to start all over again. And it all basically is a form fill-out system. The entire system, I think, and this is my thesis, you have to ask a couple of good questions as a scientist, as a journalist. Do they really want to screw up, or is this part of the whole plan? And I'm not saying it's an absolute answer, but I'm tilting toward the fact that they wanted to screw up. And then
maybe there's some kind of subliminal desire to.
No, I can tell you there are a couple of the reasons for it.
All right.
The first reason is, why would you let TEPCO go for 2.5 years, and now they're in extremis and they're about to have
all of a sudden? Let's get serious. Let's ask the world for help.
Yeah, ask the world for help at the point where the plant is going to have a pyrophoric fire. Now, most people don't know what pyrophoric means.
They're going to
pyrophoric means when you have a depleted uranium round and it hits the side of a building or a rock, or they call it blue fire when it hits a tank and it bounces around inside. I remember taking care of a gentleman that came back from the Gulf back in the early 90s, and he was a medic, pulled out another gentleman who got hit with some shrapnel when a depleted uranium round hit the side of the tank, went through because it melts its way through the wall. And probably 90% of the munition, if you want to call it, besides melting through, turned into basically nanoparticles. And what nanoparticle uranium does is it blocks what's called the hexosmonophosphate shunt. So you waste faster than if you starve to death. You actually, when he came back, he lost like 90 pounds in about a month and a half. And it also blocks your cobalt pathways, B12. It blocks molybdenum, so you can't metabolize neurotransmitters. So his autonomic nervous system was all over the place. He was hot, cold. His system basically chewed up all the muscles in his body to try to replace the sugar he couldn't eat, and he was so nauseated he couldn't eat at all. So he actually died faster than if he starved to death. Now, what people don't understand is we're going to have massive bursts of radiation, ever-increasing burps. And the evident low-grade radiation sickness that only strikes the unborn and the elderly is going to start striking people of middle age and younger people. And they may not recognize it. I had a consult yesterday by a young woman who traveled from an American company to a division of their company in Tokyo. And she was over there 3 weeks. And she called me in a panic because her friend listens to the program, to my program, and of course to your program here, and realized that, hey, maybe I could help. I took her history. Luckily, she wasn't bleeding from her gums. She wasn't showing signs of acute CNS problems, but her hair was falling.
Yeah.
Not yet, but she was only over there 3 weeks. She stayed in Tokyo, in southern Tokyo, by the way, city, not northern, which is really bad.
And only 3 weeks.
She also stayed at a town on the coast, which is right just directly east of Tokyo City, which means it's bad because the coastal radiation is much higher.
Of course.
And then she stayed at a town south of Tokyo. So I gave her a protocol of our nutraceuticals to help to, chelate out the heavy metals, block the free radicals, and help to protect her mitochondria. What people don't understand is here's the situation. Let's say on X date, whether it could be next month, next year, we have a massive, I call burp of radiation, because this is not the only time this is going to happen. This is going to happen repeatedly and increasingly. We have two typhoons converging that are going to be apparently going to converge right outside Fukushima by Saturday.
Yeah, they're going to hang out together. They're
going to hang out, these two typhoons. And what will happen is, when this happens, you're not only going to get subsidence of the mush, the oatmeal nuclear mush there, but you probably have the cooling pool fall over SP4, and you're going to have increasing levels of unrecognized criticality. Now, the way you can recognize criticality if you're flying a small plane or a drone within a few miles is you look for what's called blue light. What blue light is, it's basically neutron streams coming out of the Fukushima Daiichi plants shooting up toward the sky and oxidizing nitrogen in the air.
We've already seen that, haven't we, in some of the cam shots, the night cam shots?
Right, and if all you have to do, in fact, if you could actually do Google Earth or could see it in real time, and you could see blue streaks, you know that it was increasing. In fact, the number of blue streaks, the criticality is increasing. It's a real simple way of doing it. If you look at Google Earth and you look down there and say, ooh, the blue streaks went from X to X by 5, let's say. It's a very simple way of saying, hey, there's increased criticality, because they're going to go right through the ground, right through the sides of these buildings, these little plastic, storage containers. They're going to shoot up. Now, here's the scenario. Most people don't realize when you have hazmat, because I was trained in hazmat for nuclear reactors, the Savannah reactor in South Carolina, the nuclear reactor in Central Illinois and Rocky Flats. You have to follow this policy. Let's say you're a nuclear reactor worker in Savannah, and the reactor got lost containment. You get in your hazmat suit with your air filters on, and your rad suit, which is going to block very little radiation, but at least it's going to block some of the lower energy beta, right? Not the high energy beta, but low energy beta. And it'll block alpha.
It'll block alpha.
It'll block alpha, but it blocks some low energy beta. What happens is that you have to have, like, if you're home, you have to have a raincoat and a porch or someplace where you can actually take off your clothes or your raincoats and other things, and you have to literally undress, decontaminate, and then come inside after you've done a considerable decon, probably 20 minutes or so in a shower. And you have to have HEPA filters in your home. You have to filter all your water. Like we have a water system called Pure Water that will actually remove all radioisotope water, because people don't realize all the water supplies in the Western world, and now even in South America and so on, because these streams of radiation are not just staying in the northern hemisphere. We're going to see acute radiation sickness. Now, the first level of symptoms are going to be gastrointestinal, because your most rapidly reproducing cells in your body are your mucous lining of your mouth, your eyes, and your lungs. So they reproduce and they actually change over 3 or 4 days. So you'll get gastrointestinal respiratory symptoms. The next level are going to be CNS. You're going to start getting changes in people's CNS function because the brain is very highly metabolic. If you start generating free radicals, those cells start to actually seize or fire abnormally. And the next level you're going to see is drops in blood cells, a drop in platelet count, a drop in natural killer cells. You're going to start seeing infections. The people after Nagasaki and Hiroshima that drank the black rain, which is where these giant black droplets of rain fell because they had nuclei that would make giant droplets. They swiftly found they were actually developing gas gangrene and terminal sepsis while walking around with a pulse. So what I think is going to happen is we're going to start seeing signs of people getting disoriented, dizzy,
short-term memory loss,
inappropriate behavior, diarrhea, what they think is food poisoning or whatever, when actually is radiation poisoning.
Right. Yeah. Well, we've got to pause.
Start showing up, and then people are going to start popping into hospitals with all kinds of respiratory and gastrointestinal infections because the bugs are already there, waiting for your immune system to weaken so they can kind of explode.
Right. Okay. Hold on. We have to take a break. You're a doctor. We'll come back and follow this up. Remember this, ladies and gentlemen. There are only so many symptoms out there to go around. The number of causes of these symptoms are becoming exponentially enormous now.
Yeah.
So how do you diagnose? Toughest game in the book. Back with Dr. Bill. Okay, Bill, the point is, my question, if I may, how are doctors, or how are we, with so many doctors going to quit now from Obamacare, how are we going to be able to collate trends? When this begins trending in the directions you pointed out, how are we going to know? Because we know the CDC is not going to tell us. We know the state health agencies aren't going to tell us.
The first problem is the number of doctors who trained in occupational medicine, toxicology, and environmental medicine
is like what 1%?
A couple hundred for the entire nation.
Yeah.
So they're not going to recognize. What they're going to see is increased respiratory infections, diarrhea, strange behavior. Then as it gets worse, people are going to start developing much more significant signs, increased intracranial pressure, cardiac arrhythmias. People should recognize, for example, that cesium is an analog of potassium. And cesium-134, which means acute criticality, which means it's new. Cesium-137 is older. It's a longer isotope.
Well, that's what's happening to fish. Their cartilage and bones are being often augmented, shall we say.
They interfere with potassium, magnesium. Magnesium is the life mineral in animals, and it's the energy mineral in plants. So all your mitochondria stop functioning, and literally the genetics of the cell break down when they don't have the proper mineral content. And they're constantly, the best way to think of it is your cell is a battery with ions across the other side of the membrane. And when radiation hits, whether it's beta particles, gamma rays, or alpha particles, it's like puncturing tiny little pinholes through the cell membrane so the electrons leak. And when the electrons leak and you get a higher concentration of protons in the cell basically loses its electro potential, so it can't heal itself, it can't pump out toxins, and it can't fight infection. And what I see happening is the doctors aren't going to recognize it until the pattern is you've got an airborne plague, or you've got a lot of people acting very strangely and very disoriented, or you've got people that are displaying symptoms that they're having signs that look like, say, food poisoning or respiratory symptoms, but they're not going to click altogether.
No, and the doctors aren't going to click either, and they're going to go right on down the road.
It's like the hazmat we did. I did the hazmat with the FBI and CDC and Rocky Mountain Ahmed. We had the contract with the federal government to do a simulation at the Performing Arts Center in Denver, and then at the 17th Avenue Mall. And we also bought computer time on the supercomputer up for the National Weather Service up in Boulder, Colorado. And when we did these simulations, we actually did a war game simulation and brought mock-up patients that were hazmat officers and military officers to Presbyterian St. Luke's, St. Joe's Hospital, et cetera, at the University of Colorado. And what we found is we killed everybody, the virus would spread everywhere, and there was nothing we did to stop anything. So in other words, we weren't just abjectly failing, we made sure that everybody died, and if it was something that would spread and wouldn't just be contained in the area, when you had a simulated sprayer on the second floor window on the 17th Avenue, which is like a canyon of, skyscraper built, in downtown Denver. We also did a simulation of a biological material, like, say, cyclotron waste from a cancer clinic in downtown Denver near the Republic Plaza, which is downtown. There's a lot of underground tunnels down there, but it's a place basically where there's a lot of top government classified things going on in downtown Denver at the Republic Plaza. And in all of these scenarios, in all of them, the FEMA's plan number one is to turn off the power. And so we have a power blackout that could potentially occur because of the Einstein comet. But we have a statement by the outgoing director of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, that we have a 100% chance in a future, just put the date, that we're going to have a CME, or, this is a big or, cyber terrorism that's going to knock out our grid. Well, nothing could knock out our whole grid. The first thing about it is it's not technically very advanced. It's like a Haitian tar paper shack. And in fact, it'll become more vulnerable to hacking if you had a smart grid with all the fancy stuff they want to put on that'll cost $12, $15 trillion over the next 10 years, including smart appliances for all Americans where they can shut off your washer and dryer unless you do your washing after 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night. So they reduce daytime load. And they, Dr. Olio Hansen last year, who was on the program from Karolinska, and a researcher for the last 40 years on electro pollution, and he reported a case of a woman in Sweden where they actually did that. They shut off her washer and dryer, so she contacted the utility in Sweden. They told her that she was not allowed to do her washing till after 10 o'clock. So we have those going on. Then we also have the pollution from smart meters. Now, smart meters, along with these radiotoxins, along with genetically modified food, along with food that's now mineral depleted, along with genetically modified gluten, which is also a toxin. And remember, all of these chemicals...
Wait. GMO gluten?
Yeah, what happens is about 25, 30 years ago, they modified the plants to be, instead of 6.5 to 7 feet tall, 3 feet tall. And so that was
100 years ago, but that wasn't GMO.
No, that was the latest modification. They had other ones changed.
That was just
before.
Genetic selectivity. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, but the genetic selectivity, what it did, it wasn't the typical genetic modification we talk about, like shooting cassettes of genes in. But what they did when they did the selectivity is they actually created plants that made gluten were much more allergenic. Much more allergenic. So we have a lot of people...
Yeah, we shouldn't be eating wheat at all.
No, we shouldn't. And the thing is, wheat's tied directly to diabetes and syndrome X because it puts the gut into shock. And when you put the gut into shock, you do several things. Firstly, you deplete thiamine. And we have a very limited capacity to phosphorylate thiamine to its activated fat-soluble form, which is, by the way, the cause, one of the primary causes of autism, is you deplete the brain of its fat-soluble form of thiamine. And they discovered this in Japan to stop sudden infant death syndrome after the Second World War, so they did research on thiamine and discovered that tetrahydroperipheral disulfide, which we carry, a special form called L-thiamine. We also have a form called ultrathiamine B1. It's very important. Vitamin B1 is the most important B vitamin. And when it's depleted, it makes your autonomic nervous system not work properly. It makes your central nervous system controls your respiratory drive center. So these babies with SIDS, their respiratory drive center in the brainstem stops working. It's almost like a little mechanism like you buy at Walmart. It kind of goes kablooey. It doesn't work, and the baby just stops breathing. It's because it's thiamine depletion. Because people in Hong Kong were having polished white rice, and when the Japanese came in and gave them brown rice, the incidence of SIDS dropped to virtually zero because they had some thiamine present in the brown rice. It was unrefined. Now, what does that have to do with this? Well, when you go under stress depletes your body of thiamine. Allergic stress, radioactive stress, emotional stress, electromagnetic stress. Electromagnetic stress can make you diabetic or make you develop neurological problems, including Alzheimer's disease, because it depletes your body of certain nutrients. There's not only drugs that we call nutrient depleters, but electrotoxins. That's what I call them, electrotoxins, that have specific harmonic frequencies that will actually deplete your body of certain minerals and certain nutrients and vitamins. And one of those important, that's why we have what we call high-calorie malnutrition in our society, is when you add electrotoxins and you add radiotoxins or chemicals that can attach to proteins and make them thousands or millions of times more allergenic, you deplete the body of all kinds of important minerals, trace elements, nutrients. And then the body, trying to protect itself, shuts down what's called the redox or energy in the cell. And then the cells already start to die. So your immune system goes, your mitochondria don't make new mitochondria, your body can't get rid of heavy metals and toxins, and things start to accelerate aging real fast. And of course, if you get a super infection, then you really get in trouble. So doctors, because of this complex interaction, unless they have a background and know what kind of tests to do to find out what's going on, environmental testing, they're not going to recognize it.
No.
There's only a few hundred doctors like me in the Western world that are trained into this.
Yeah.
Not thousands, not hundreds of thousands.
Well,
and most older doctors that are experienced actually could recognize it by just being good observers.
Yeah.
If they're within 5 years of retirement, they're not going to take orders from DHS or from
not a chance.
Health and Human Services. They're not going to take orders from bureaucrats pushing pencils, telling them that they have to treat patients a certain way. They're going to quit. And Obama is planned to bring at least 500,000 or more foreign doctors.
I know, this is amazing. We talked about this the other day. Hold on, Bill, we have to pause. They'll be bringing 747 plane loads full of MDs from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, wherever they can get them. It'll be crazy. Now, to major in nuclear medicine, we'll take on a whole new meeting soon. All right, we'll be right back. Okay, back to Dr. Bill. He's with us once a week, and sometimes that's 5 times.
Spend quite a bit of time on talking about the Fukushima, because I think I want to give a little more medical side to it rather than just the, of course, with this tsunami coming, we're going to get a big burst, but there's a couple of what I call real big.
You mean the typhoon?
Yeah, the typhoons. What's going to happen, these typhoons, when they converge, will cause another major release of radiation. And people are going to start showing accumulated not only chronic low-grade exposure, but as we get bursts of radiation, we're going to start... They're going to
try... Bill, excuse me. I just want to mention this one little thing. We talked about it the other day, Monday.
Yeah.
1,300 spent fuel rod assemblies are going to be attempted to be pulled out of Reactor 4 spent fuel pool with that overhead crane on the dolly.
Right.
If one set of them touches each other, you're going to have a pyrophoric fire and potential explosion.
In fact, what happens is the borinated rubber disappeared.
It's gone.
There's 3 problems with it. Firstly, the borinated rubber's gone, so it doesn't slow down neutrons. Second is the assemblies are twisted, so they can't come out whole, so you have to cut them. And the third...
Who's going to cut them? They're going to send frogmen down there and to pick up all the broken ones on the bottom?
It's not a matter like pulling something out of a slot.
It's a joke.
It's a joke. So the first thing is, it's an impossible thing. As I said before, they need to turn this into a crystalline sarcophagus, and they need to not touch it or attempt to move it anywhere until they can develop technology, what I call subatomic fracturing of these radioactive isotopes, which can be done. I'm sure the science is possible, or maybe Tier 1 science is already here. That could be done in the future. They can fracture these into non-radioactive daughter molecules.
They're going to have to transmute them somehow.
Right. And, the transmutation is really simple. The principle is really simple. Think of each different atom like a diamond, and there's a facet line in the nucleus of the atom. If you break along that nucleus, you create daughter non-radioactive isotopes, like carbon, iron, and so on, that has no radioactive release of gamma rays and no neutron release, and is stable. And I believe it's possible. I think it may be something that takes a lot of effort. It may be something we already have. We know that some of the reactors, like, for example, there's a scientist that developed a nuclear fusion reactor that's a low-temperature reactor, that's a fusion reactor, that's been pretty well proven. The company's based in Vancouver, Canada. He's from Europe. And that system will be coming out next year. It's a small box that can generate tremendous amounts of power. So we know if they can do fusion, that they already have the capacity using subatomic plasma physics to actually break these isotopes into different elements. This is what happens on the sun all the time. This is what probably happens even in nuclear reactions or reactors on the Earth or inside the Earth. You see, the Earth is a large nuclear reactor, and we live on a nuclear reactor called planet Earth with a crust on it. That's why the abiotic oil in the Earth is actually created by this chronic nuclear fusion reaction occurring over billions of years, taking smaller molecules and building larger molecules using the fusion reaction caused by neutron insertion and bonding that occurs because of the nuclear isotope. That's why, for example, the tar balls that came out in Louisiana and the Gulf Coast after they drilled the Macondo drill site a few years ago, those tar balls were radioactive. They had uranium. They looked red, almost like, like red tar. But they actually were radioactive, very highly radioactive, because they were young, what's called abiotic oil. Now, I saw some really crazy news reports. One, I'm looking at this gentleman by the name of Harutomo Hagi, Japanese chef from Fukushima, smelling mushrooms during his visit to Paris. He brought over all these certified certificates of vouchers of safe produce following the March 2011 nuclear disaster. And he's there. He's 37 years of age, and he's in this special Paris show showing off all the wonderful taste of smoked chicken and wasabi from the stricken Japanese region of Fukushima. I mean,
from Fukushima Prefecture?
Yeah. Listen, he brought a whole suitcase of it over for this special chef thing that was going on in Paris.
Well, that's only topped by Shinzo Abe chowing down on Fukushima seafood last week. That was pretty funny, too.
Yeah, well, that's like the guy that drank the full glass of PCB many years ago.
Yeah.
And then he got stricken down with, I think, some form of leukemia or something awful, like a stage 4 cancer spread everywhere. You can immunize people from stupidity by trying to train them to ask better questions, but you can't immunize people against, I call malignant stupidity. It's kind of like metastasized.
Well, we could call it suicide, too.
Yeah, it's a form of, it's trying to say, hey, we're suiciding. Why don't you be just like us and suicide, too? And so they're, they're bringing.
Unfortunately, that happens.
Yeah, and I think this is part of our culture too. It's I call it the lemming culture. It's a very strange thing. And then people will actually get kind of vicious over it too. But I'm what I call spittle proof. I have a special spittle proof spray coating that prevents spittle from staying.
Teflon from foot to heel.
Yeah, I just spray it on every morning, and all the spit just flows right off. So, people will criticize me. I say, hey. My care for you is not dependent on whether or not you like me. I try to do the best because I'll die for my fellow man, if my fellow American. I will try to save people not only from physical but spiritual death. But I don't really care if they like me. That's not really the issue. My love of my fellow man is not conditional on whether or not they think I'm great, which is good. I mean, you don't go on ego trips, and you also don't get twisted out of shape if they think you're nuts. What I ask them to do though is just ask better questions. If they do their own research, they're going to find out, oh my gosh, I was hoping that he was crazy, but gee, turns out he's not. What a bummer. Pretty funny, eh?
Unreal.
It is, but you got to look at the funny side of this too, because it really is amazing how people like this guy is going over the suitcase of material to show just how great the food is in Fukushima. It's got an extra zip, it's been zapped up with radioisotopes.
Uh-huh.
And it's
kind of like
see this picture of his eyes popping.
Super MSG. All right.
This guy looks like he's having a manic rage attack. Think, ooh, maybe Fukushima stuff makes you have an attack of mania, or it fries your frontal lobes and you become like the living dead. Like these new in the Walking Dead movies. By the way, that's one of the other symptoms of radiation sickness.
Is that zombieism?
You start acting like a zombie, and the reason is the highly metabolic tissue, your eyes, your frontal lobes start to dysfunction. So your vision gets affected, your frontal lobe with executive actions, your behavior becomes less controlled by higher thought processes. You lose short-term memory, you have all kinds of things like that. You get disorientation of hearing, because it's highly metabolic balance. So it's going to get a little too interesting, I don't think people understand.
It could get interesting by this weekend. Now, when 3/11 happened, and I took some heat from some people I know, but I went out and I have raised planters for my garden, and I covered them with plastic tarps to keep the rain out of the dirt. And then I put a greenhouse cover over it. So it's covered now. But a lot of dirt, got a lot of radiation in it from a lot of rain back then. And we think most of it was radioactive iodine, but we're not sure. So iodine-131, that would have been gone in 2 weeks, okay. But I measured groundwater, standing water, all kinds of water, and it was in the water. And fortunately, a couple of weeks later, it measured almost normal. So I think it was the first wave was pretty much iodine-131, Bill. I don't know if you heard that or not, but
Yeah, the earlier waves were more iodine-131, but you'll have other isotopes like cesium-134,
Yeah.
137, and strontium-90.
Well, I defy anybody to get
Strontium's increasing in percentage now.
Yeah, okay. We got a break. Come back in just a minute. Okay, back with Bill.
Yep.
Talking about
what I'd like to do is
things.
change gears a bit and talk about what I call potential timelines and branch points where things are likely to happen.
Okay.
Without setting dates, because I think that's kind of specious to set dates, but we can know that things are measured in months, not years now. We're going to have probably a burst of radiation next week after the typhoons caused a lot of release of radiation from Japan.
Mm-hmm. At the very least, it'll give TEPCO an excuse to dump more water out of those tanks.
Right, and now we're doing this under the cover of the typhoon. The next thing we're going to see is increased delays in the healthcare implementation, which even if it was working, actually would be worse because there'd be more people enrolled in it. And the problem is the system never controls costs. It's going to dictate to doctors what they have to do to provide care, and it makes people buy parts of insurance they don't want or need. Now, I put the plan a few weeks ago. I talked about that. We're going to do a healthcare system would be very simple. And I would even go beyond Canada, the United States, and I wouldn't call it socialist. I'd call it part of your rights as an American. You have a federal and state tax. The money flows through to the county, to the primary care doctors who hire everybody, both specialists and anyone else. You have clinics where basically they're demands you don't dump somebody in an emergency department. Simple things can be treated there, and you have basically everyone from someone shows them how to cook to visiting neurosurgeons to massage therapists, oriental medical doctors, people who can do toxicology and lab testing on the spot, and synthesize Eastern and Western medicine, such as what I've talked about, quantitative resonance analysis and on-the-spot rapid testing, which you can do, by the way. But these rapid testing sets now are the size of a laptop computer, and they can test hundreds of tests in a few minutes. With a few drops
and in a few years, they'll be one-third the size of what they are now.
Right. So the point is, they make medicine more complicated. They don't properly train the doctors. They don't integrate functional medicine. You've got to correct people's physiology and their deficiencies and their poor diet, and you got to have them drinking clean food and water and not stress. It's just like, think of a person if you're growing a crop of people, okay? Like that Twilight Zone show was, How to Serve People.
To serve man.
How to serve man. Well, if you're going to serve man, if you're going to grow a good crop of man, you'd want to make sure you take care of them. You probably give them proper minerals in their soil. You feed them properly, would stress them so they wouldn't have bad chemicals in their body that would make them sick. Well, what happens is our entire healthcare system is backwards. It waits until people are catastrophic, and then it cuts off their treatment once they reach a certain dollar value, or it puts them through what we call protocols for utilization review, which is bean counters. That's not the way to run health. If you want to save money, you do it on the front end by making people live long, and when they do die, with maybe 150 or 160, they have had a full life, and they don't spend it in the ICU the last 10 or 20 years of their life. What I see happening is a system that is designed to be catastrophic. And it starts off with, I'm pretty certain that Obama and the team purposely kind of screwed things up, because the real idea is they want people to be and the insurance companies realize, hey, this is going to destroy private insurance in America. So in a couple of years, there won't be any option for people to buy Cadillac insurance or anything else. It's trying to discourage the older doctors, because older doctors will have compassion and do the right things. Where you bring in foreign doctors in, they're going to follow the party line and do what DHS says. So what I see happening, that's the second timeline. I think we're going to find a catastrophic health issues are going to start mounting. And the number of people that either can't sign up for insurance because they don't qualify or can't afford it are going to arrive in hospitals very sick. And, of course, hospitals, like any business, if I can't bill patient X, I got to bill patient Y 2 or 3 times as much in order to pay for the other person. So we as a business don't go bankrupt. So what that means is that it's going to kill business, it's going to kill patients, and it's going to particularly knock off people that are older and wise and have wisdom. The gray-haired people are the greatest resource that America has. It's not oil, it's not machinery, it's not infrastructure, it's the wisdom and the older heads that live in this country, that have fought in wars.
And, of course, that's the wisdom that the controllers want out of here.
They want it out of here. And, of course, the reason why they're attacking Obamacare and they want to grab people's pensions is they want these older, wise people, the gray hairs. They want them out of here because they can't do what they want. The current generation, we call generation, what is it called? Generation Millennium? The millennials?
That's it, yeah.
Millennials are like completely disconnected. They are cybernetically attached to an iPhone or an Android. They're in a forward head posture, which most chiropractors would just, their neck's going to be a mess in 5 years, right? They're only 16.
Exactly.
So what we have is a culture of disconnected people that they're caught betwixt and between. They're seeing things like the internet, but they don't know how to discern it because the educational system doesn't teach kids to be independent thinkers. They have groupthink. And our generation, going back to the 50s and 60s and before, we were much more independent thinkers. We were relying on ourselves. We weren't relying on the government to feed us, to clothe us, do all the things for us. I mean, even back then, the average doctor, could pay a reasonable small fee. Patients were responsible, and the patient couldn't pay. The doctor did a lot of charity service. When I was in practice in Georgia in '87, we did a day a week where we did indigent care free. We never asked for anything. We even gave them all their drugs we could get. And a lot of time, we'd even pay for materials or sutures out of our own pocket. What we have under Obamacare, you can't do that. The bean counters are going to tell the doctor what to do. So Obama and his communist masters are not just trying to spread the wealth. They're trying to kill off the seniors. They're trying to not do things that will protect us from losing the unborn, which is things like Fukushima that causes trisomic gene damage. They want to destroy our food and make sure it's highly radioactive, because another big growth industry, if you're out there like Gerald Salente, is in the next few years, if we survive these radiation bursts, people are going to start getting really freaked out by not only GMO-free food or gluten-free food. How about Fukushima-free food? And they may have to have, quote, farms in the southern hemisphere where they ship specific food in special radiation-proof packaging, certified not to have, contain radioisotopes. People say, that can't happen. I said, yes, it can. It very well can happen. And they have to crush America in order to bring in a new financial order, because this December, I know other people have said that the system is going to be revised. They changed the charter for the Federal Reserve. Not true. You can't change the charter. The Federal Reserve is over this December 24th, the Christmas Eve. And what will happen is they tried to start a war in the Middle East because that's great cover. The rule by catastrophe, global maniacs, the banksters, they want to crush America so they can use America as a launching point for not what just Snowden's talking about, but for a surveillance, biometric, financial, healthcare, everything. That's why when I received 700 pages of documents back in 1998 in downtown Denver from a Lockheed Martin scientist who told me the implementation of what they're planning on doing, straight up with all the actual facts, that Obamacare is only marginally involved with healthcare. It is control. It is a massive debt machine. It is the destruction of seniors. It has, if they took the $600 million they made for the software and just did to try to control the radiation from TEPCO and ship the top brains, scientists from America and the U.S. Army Corps engineers to help, I'm sure we would have significantly less radiation in the Pacific. 4,000 nautical miles dead. I heard one of the shows that you had with one of the reports.
3,000.
Yeah, or whatever it is. What's happening is now, when you have the oceans die, people have to understand the Earth is a living organism. And when there's a death signal that happens when that happens, you're probably familiar with this, right?
Yep.
That death signal starts to not only spread to other living things in the ocean, it starts to spread to human beings.
It's real. So death photons, death signature.
Death photons, yeah. That death photon signal starts to spread to those life forms. It enters the psyche and the superconscious of the population, because much of the behavior of humanity now is, in a sense, collective suicide. Russia and China and India got together not just to talk about their finances, but to talk about the possibility there might be a nuclear war this last few days. That's crazy. Why are we talking like that? It's because Obama and his handlers were absolutely frustrated by the fact that they couldn't start a nuclear war. Now, I had my program the other day, a Jewish journalist by the name of Barry Chamish, and he was from Canada, went to Israel in the early 70s, fought in the IDF.
I know Barry.
If America bombed Syria, the Hezbollah, the Syrian, and the other missiles, Israel wouldn't have one individual left within a matter of hours. Nothing that we could do or Israel could do would stop it. 150,000 to 200,000 missiles. Iron Dome, Patriot 2 isn't going to stop it from destroying everybody.
No chance. None.
Right. And of course, Israel will use, like Samson, the Samson option, chained to the temple of Dagon, like the ancient Palestinians, still unleash hell on every country, including Russia and China, of nuclear missiles raining down on them, and we'll have a thermonuclear international exchange that will destroy most of humanity. And the rest of you, so the living will envy the dead. Now, this almost happened a month ago because the bankers didn't have their way. Now, don't think they're backed off. January, when this debt thing comes, we have both ravenous wolf Democrats and ravenous wolf Republicans. And they think that austerity fascism, the Republicans are in shock because Obama gets away with more austerity fascism than any Republican would. And the Democrats won't divest themselves of Obama, even though he's destroying the Democratic Party from the inside. So it is the craziest thing going on. When they're a race to the bottom, they want to just cut off people's now dependent food stamps are totally being abused. They want to let in millions of illegals and give them citizenship. They want to produce a health plan that doesn't control costs, that will go a race to the bottom, make us all go bankrupt. And it doesn't do even preventive medicine against radiotoxins or slow down aging or doing anything with public health, dealing with toxins in our water, food, and air. It does nothing. So what I see happening is Obama is if you want to call it, his best title would be Obama the Destroyer. He's here to destroy and be the last functional president of the almost solvent United States of America.
Right. Well, he is presiding over quite a pending funeral, no question.
Well, the reason he's doing that is because they want to create America as just a part of Zone 3 of the 10-zone world, September 1993 Council on Foreign Relations Journal, because the mark of the beast, the biometric world node system, we talk about the matrix.
Yeah.
Its primary node is at Shreve Air Force Base, Colorado Springs, outside Garbage Dump Road, 300 level security is NORAD. That supercomputer array of Cray 4 and Cray 5 computers is a primary node. The mark of the beast, the biometric world system, this is the real point of Obamacare. This is the real point of the Patriot Act 9/11. This is the real point of everything that's happened to these presidents, always John F. Kennedy, is to have a global world financial system and mutate the Federal Reserve into a world reserve bank.
Agreed. Well, only
and
three
we're right
countries.
around the corner for it, and Obamacare is just one of the other steps.
That's right.
To a trackable chip that uses our biometrics, so everything's in their database.
Yep.
And if they can control your SIM, they got you. And if people think it's about healthcare or anything else,
no.
Obama's going to give me an Obama phone and take care of me and take care of my health and everything.
He's going to pay my mortgage. He's going to put gas in my car.
They're
going to give me a cell phone.
Crappy healthcare to what's called memory care. This is the actual term. And from memory care to hospice to the morgue.
Yeah. No care.
That's what it is.
No count.
Yeah.
Bill, that's it. You've summed it up again as usual. Thank you. And we'll...
Well, I tell people, don't get depressed over it. As I say, I'm a messianic believer. Pray, study, ask better questions, and then take any kind of action. I don't care what it is. Just do something every day to fight the beast. Something. Please. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. I hope I didn't speak too quickly today.